Hi, I'm Kenny Anderson, Director of Multicultural Affairs for the City of Huntsville, and welcome to Impact. Each week we bring you information about exciting and informative things that are happening right here in this community, and today will be no different. Each year we have an opportunity to highlight a very special event that takes place in honor and memory of the events that took place on 9/11 and the great heroism that was exhibited on that day. Today we're going to be talking about the 2017 event, and as always, I have the pleasure of introducing not just a guest, but a friend. Reverend Kerry Holder Joffrion is here with us today. She's CEO of Turning Point Group Incorporated. Welcome back to our broadcast.
Thank you so much, Kenny.
It's always good to have you. You know, it's always a different feel when you're interviewing friends, but you're also coming with a very meaningful and substantive initiative that we want the community to know about and participate. So thank you for being here.
Oh, thank you so much for having me.
Joining you is Mark Clouser. He is, actually he's on my team because he's with Huntsville Fire Rescue. I work for the city, he works for the city. He's a district chief here. Welcome to the broadcast.
Thank you for having me.
And it's great to have you here. Of course, we're going to talk about why you're here in just a few moments. But first of all, let's talk a little bit about what the 9/11 Honor Walk is.
Great. Our 9/11 Honor Walk is a way of remembering and celebrating and healing. And it's a way the community comes together now annually. This is our third year of doing it in Huntsville. It's a Huntsville original. And we have a ceremonial celebration of our first responders, our military, and our veterans and their families and the sacrifices they've offered for the rest of us since 9/11.
So there are all kinds of things that happen on that day. People all over the nation, even over the world, commemorating this, honoring the heroes of that day. How did this initiative start locally?
Well, it started locally, actually, with a direct connection with New York. And so Turning Point, at the time of the tragedy, was asked to be a consultant for healing at the ground zero through St. Paul's Chapel, primarily, with first responders. And we worked for about 10 years in New York to help restore balance, healing, and purpose. And following that...
What was that process like?
That was an amazing process. At one point in New York, they turned to us and said, we have 3 million pilgrims. We have 3 million visitors a year who come to this site trying to find meaning. We need to know what it's like to be on a meaning-making journey as American people for the restoration of the American spirit. And we suggested that they actually come to Huntsville, which they did. So the staff of St. Paul's Chapel, the ones who were directly responsible for the staging area for the rescue attempts at 9/11 with first responders, came to Huntsville, stayed at Montesano State Park, and we took them on civil rights walks throughout the state of Alabama to help them heal. Isn't that interesting connection?
Wow. That is an extremely interesting connection, I think. And one would be hard pressed not to visit that site.
Yes.
And walk away without some type of emotional connection to either what happened on that day, the postscript, the many issues and challenges that remain as a consequence of that, the way the world has changed since then. I mean, it really would be hard to do that. I, of course, grew up in New York City in the shadow of the World Trade Center on Manhattan. I always tell people, my friends and I used to, as teenagers, go down there and ride the elevator because it was just fascinating to ride up to the 110th floor of that building. I mean, we literally watched that building being built right in our backyard. And then to see what happened on that day and then to see the aftermath. And I've visited the site. I haven't been to the museum, to the memorial since it was established, but shortly after it came down and they had kind of reconstructed that site in preparation to build, it was just the most incredible experience. I mean, and I have to say that it was a process that I think many people experience where they're sort of searching for something, they're connecting with something. And I imagine a lot of people that you've worked with are in varying stages of reconciling the events of that day, some more successfully than others.
Yes, when you have an event that large in the human spirit, it's very difficult to integrate that into meaning. And you can imagine that the staff and the first responders and their families and the survivors of 9/11 had even a greater challenge than those of us who have been all affected in a secondary or tertiary way from this trauma. I still would contend we're reacting to this day. And it's a very difficult amount of human experience to integrate. And so one of the ways that we help the staff there, as well as first responders and survivors, that they still do on 9/11 every year, on the eve of 9/11, the survivors of the tragedy and the survivors and first responders come together at Ground Zero at St. Paul's Chapel. And what do? They walk an honor walk. And it's very interesting to us. It's not really something that reflects on us as Huntsvillians, but I think it's important for people in Madison County and North Alabama to know that even as the Madison police force, many of our policemen in Madison were able to go up and serve, and our firefighters in Huntsville, Madison County attempted to, but as Assistant Chief will tell you, sometimes helping can be better done from a distance. Yeah. In Huntsville's case, there were multiple ways and at multiple levels that we attempted to help because we couldn't stand by and do nothing.
Yeah. Chief Clouser, as we're talking, and I'm hearing Reverend Joffrion say first responders and even honoring the work that you do on a regular basis and the service that those brave men and women provided on that day, that awful day in American history and world history. I imagine you were a firefighter that day here in...
I was on duty that day.
What was that day like for you?
That was several emotions. You know, I talked to several people before I came and sort of asked them also. You sort of got the same type vibe from everybody. You know, you were just first, you know, when the first tower was hit, it was just sort of, that was odd. That doesn't make sense. Then when the second tower was hit, we knew immediately. And then that went from shock for us, which I'm sure the nation, everybody was in shock. But I think because of what we do, immediately it went to those first responders and knowing that they're running headfirst into what is more than likely going to be their demise, you know, but they do it with the head up and pride, and they hit those steps and never checked up, and it was emotional, it was tough.
You know, as a firefighter, I can imagine, because I've seen some of those images of the firefighters with all the equipment on, you know, that's heavy stuff, going up while everybody's coming down.
And that's tough in a hallway, trying to go up a stairwell, and everybody's trying to come down and asking for help. And those guys are toting, you know, it's not as simple as getting yourself in there. You know, your general gear weighs about 45 pounds, but you're going to have 75 to 100 when you hit those steps, because you got to carry your bottles with you. You got to carry Holligan tools, axes. You got to carry hose. You got to carry. It's not just getting yourself and the equipment. It changed our department. It changed every department in so many ways, and how we go about those things.
Yeah. Wow. And just as I listen to you talk, I'm reminded again about the great sacrifices that were made on that day.
True heroes.
Yes, absolutely. The many families who were affected by that. And as you said, things that have changed since then as a consequence of that. And that brings us to our honor walk, of course, which locally gives people a chance to memorialize those individuals who paid the ultimate sacrifice that day. And also to stand behind those individuals who are here now who continue to do those things on a regular basis. Our first responders are our true community heroes.
Yes, they are. They're the living, breathing exemplars of everything we saw on that day. And, you know, the image of the first responders in a very poignant moment erecting that American flag with the dust coating them and the almost inability to breathe, that has actually captured the essence of the overcoming of the American spirit despite the level of tragedy and loss. And it makes sense to me that when we invited our friends from New York to come down, that they would do so by walking the civil rights trails, because they're another American collective traumatic generational suffering was understood and overcome.
Oh, wow.
And you see, they were really brilliant when they said to us, where can we go? What can we do within our own country to experience how people have integrated collective trauma in a way that we can serve now with 3 million visitors a year. And so you see this, the Honor Walk has the capacity. There are very few ceremonies that have the capacity to address that level of healing for so many people. We started out with 200, Kenny, when we did it the first time 3 years ago in Huntsville, and we had 2,000. Largely due to also the awesome setting where this takes place.
It really is. So tell us when it takes place, where it takes place, and the symbolism of that location and why that's such a valuable place to have this experience.
Well, we couldn't be more honored to do the Honor Walk this year, again, underneath the great wings of the U.S. Space Shuttle.
A lot of symbolism there too, isn't it?
Named Pathfinder.
Yeah, wow.
Pathfinder.
Yeah.
We couldn't be more honored to do it underneath the Pathfinder, and the shade isn't bad either.
No,
on
it's not.
September 10th. This year we are honoring firefighters, and we also could not be more proud than to honor firefighters and their families and their contribution to our communities generationally. Many firefighters, count their service from 9/11, whether they were young'uns, young people at the time and or older. This year it will be on September 10th because that's the closest Sunday to 9/11. In honor of 9/11, September 10th, 2 to 5 p.m. at the United States Space and Rocket Center.
And people can get more information by doing what?
People can go as they have gone in the past to register, and they must pre-register at rocketcenter.com/honorwalk. It is absolutely free, which is an amazing donation, a gift from the U.S. Space and Rocket Center that counts in the tens of thousands of dollars every year, where they open their gates at the shuttle park side of the center from 2 to 5. Opening ceremony at 2. The Aeolians of Oakwood University will be with us this year, singing us through.
That's the choir of the world-winning Aeolians.
I do believe you're correct about that, Mr. Anderson.
Huge, feather in their cap since they last came out last year. And I mean, they did a fantastic job. And I think it's a coup to have them come back again. So congratulations on that.
Thank you.
I'm thinking, we just have a few minutes left, but Chief Clouser, I wanted to ask you this. We talked about a lot of things changing after 9/11. One of the things that changed was that people began sort of turning the image around from themselves to the people who really get the job done every day. I mean, you guys run to the danger while we're running away from the danger. You guys answer the call while we're making the call. You guys stand in places, essentially, as they say about soldiers, you guys stand on the wall in order to protect us. And since that time, we see all over this nation how our community heroes are being honored, our first responders are recognized at sports events all over this country. You know, the 7th inning stretch now has become an opportunity to acknowledge a first responder somewhere in America at lots of games, baseball games, and then in football games, and it's arenas everywhere. From an internal perspective, and I heard first responders say this, that the focus is still on the mission as opposed to the acknowledgement and affirmation. But what are your thoughts about just that whole change, that paradigm shift that's taken place?
Well, as you were leading into this question, I was just sitting there thinking how I was going to answer it, and you're going to get the generic answer every time, and that is, we don't consider ourselves heroes. We consider ourselves doing our jobs. That's what we're paid to do. We're, we train, we do everything to be prepared to hopefully not have to put your life on the line, but the men and women that I work with are willing to do that at any moment.
Yeah.
If that's called upon, that's what they'll do.
And that's why I applaud you, and that's why I celebrate the work that you do, as well as first responders everywhere, because the majority of that crew, the majority of that family, doesn't care if their name is ever mentioned, doesn't care if their face is ever seen. They know that they're getting the job done. They're on the mission, and that's all that really matters. And I applaud all first responders for that, and we celebrate you again. You don't need to celebrate yourself. We'll celebrate you.
Well, thank you, and
because that's
thank
important.
you for honoring, honoring firefighters all over this county. we're not the only ones.
Absolutely, absolutely. And that's a beautiful thought too, an important one to recognize as well. Reverend Kerry Joffrion, always good to see you, my friend.
Yes, you too, Kenny.
Again,
Thank
if
you.
people want more information about 9/11 Honor Walk, what would they do?
They need to go to the U.S. Space and Rocket Center website and register, and it's unlimited, the number of registrations, so they can bring their whole group. We are hoping every firefighter that can come in this North Alabama will register. They just simply need to go to rocketcenter.com/honor walk.
All right.
And we'll see them on September 10th, 2 to 5.
Absolutely. We want oodles and oodles of people to come out and register. And be a part of this great event. Huntsville Fire Rescue District Chief Mark Clouser, thank you for being here with us today.
Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. I want to thank you for being a part of our conversation as well, and we hope that you enjoyed the video that you just saw. We hope that you learned a lot, and we hope that you'll register using the information that we, of course, are showing on the screen so that you can make sure that you are there on September 10th at the Space and Rocket Center under the Pathfinder on the Labyrinth in the shade. We hope that you'll also like our Facebook page, Impact with Kenny Anderson, where you can see some behind-the-scenes shots of what happens once the camera stops rolling for Impact. I'm Kenny Anderson. Have a great day.